I want to say, first of all, thank you to the choir and to the worship team and to Mark in terms of the worship this morning. Mark Cannoli hits notes that I think are amazing. And if I were to try to hit those notes, I would pull a muscle of some kind. I mean, it's almost hurtful. But if you weren't here at the beginning, Mark talked about becoming fat in the Word. Now, there's a lot of people that would have an issue about the word fat. I mean, there are industries right now that make most of their early year money in terms of telling us to get in shape. How many people have joined the gym since the beginning of the year? How many people have gone to Weight Watchers? How many people everybody's trying to lose weight and gain in shape, and you come to a Sunday morning and you're told to get fat. I just don't know how we deal with that, but we'll see. So this morning's message is on double vision. Let me ask for a show of hands, how many of you have ever suffered with some kind of vision challenge? If you're wearing glasses and you're not raising your hand, there's an issue in terms of my question that I just asked. How many of us have ever dealt with a vision challenge of some kind? You know, genetically, I got great genes in terms when it comes to vision. It wasn't until less than a decade ago that I had to wear any kind of corrective lens. I went in for an eye exam. I was having problems reading late at night, and my ophthalmologist told me that my problem was that I had a cataract in my left eye. And then he told me, he prescribed glasses, and I don't know how glasses were going to help the cataract. And he told me I was going to have surgery, but that kind of surgery in terms of the kind of cataract that I was suffering from was beyond his capability. And so he recommended me to a specialist at UCSF, Dr. Wong. I went. He told me that he would certainly do the surgery, but it was a riskier process. And I said, riskier? What do you mean riskier? He said, well, most cataract surgeries are 1 to 2% risk. Yours is 3%. I thought I can live with that. And so he performed the surgery. My wife Jody and I stayed in San Francisco for a few hours, and we're going home. So I couldn't wait until he told me how many hours before I could take off the patch. And so I waited exactly that amount of time. So we're driving back over the Bay Bridge when I took the patch off. And I couldn't believe how bright it was. It was an incredibly clear winter day, absolutely gorgeous. And I looked over and I said, honey, there's hardly any blurriness. And I can't believe the amount of light that's coming in right now. And so I went in, I got re-examined. He was very happy. He said, so we're gonna set you up for your second surgery on your right eye, and it's not nearly as bad, and we'll do it in about a year. And so a year later, I'm back in to his office, and he's doing the second surgery. And that morning I said, you know, doctor, I have a problem. And he said, what's that? And I said, I completely forgot, today's the surgery, and I completely forgot in 2 days is my birthday, and I think he was expecting a card or something from him, and I said, no, it's my birthday, and I have to renew my driver's license. It's the first time I'm going to have to go back into DMV for years, and I just know that I'm not going to pass the vision part of it, right? And he goes, probably not in 2 days. And he said, but don't worry, all you have to do is go into DMV and ask for an extension, and they'll give you a 90-day extension. Don't worry about it. So I thought, great. So I did the surgery. I waited the prescribed amount of time. I took the patch off, expecting to be able to see pretty well, and it was blurry. And I thought that was the good eye, so there must be something that's kind of gone askew with this. But in 2 days, I had to go into DMV. So that morning, my wife was going to the office, and she said, well, don't forget to go in and get your extension today. And I said, don't worry, I will. So I went into DMV, which is usually a half a day process. And I just waited until I got into line, and finally I said, I'm just here for a 90-day extension. And she said, okay, well, fill out this form. So I filled out the form, and she said, okay, go into this line. So I went into that line, and guess what line it was? It was the vision test, which I'm trying to avoid. And I said, no, I'm in the wrong lane. I'm just here for an extension. Can I get into the extension line? And they said, well, you're here with the vision, so you might as well take it. Because we want to make sure if we're going to give you an extension that you'll be able to see. And I'm thinking, no, this is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. So she sits there, but I can't talk this lady out of it. Have you ever tried to talk anybody out of anything at DMV? So I am there, and she said, okay, both eyes, and I get the vision test, and I pass both eyes. I'm not worried about this. Cover your right eye. So I'm now doing the one that I had surgery on a year before. I passed that, and she said, now cover your left eye, and let's do your right eye. And so I did that, and she said, well, great. She said, why do you have corrective lenses on your license? You just aced the entire exam. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. She said, so go in line over here. And I said, this is the line for the extension. Because now I'm a little nervous because I haven't read the manual. I'm not up on top of the new laws. And I'm afraid that I'm going to flunk the exam. And they're going to take my license away from me. And so I'm trying to talk my way out, and they said, no, just go into this line. And so I get into that line thinking it's the 90-day extension line, and they're taking my photograph. And I'm saying, you're just really not paying attention to me. I just want an extension. And they said, well, go into this line. So I think, okay, this is the line, the magical line, 5 items or less, right? You know, all I want is a 90-day extension. It's the line to take your exam. And so, you know, they give me the code. They said, go over to the computer, take the exam. And I said, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to bomb this test. You're going to take my license away from me. And he started laughing. And he said, don't worry about it. You can flunk it twice before we do anything like that. And I went over. I took the test. I get home. That evening, Jody says to me, she said, well, honey, did you get the extension? And I said, no. She said, did you forget to go? And I said, no, I didn't. I said, I can't explain to you what happened. However, all I can tell you is that I got my license renewed and they took the corrective lenses off of my license. I can tell you, you're laughing, but I can tell you that Dr. Wong thinks that's the greatest testimonial that he's ever heard. 48 hours surgery and then have my license renewed. Now, yeah, all that applause is for Dr. Wong, yes. The thing about vision is so important. Because when I thought that I was beginning to lose mine, I was very concerned. I love to read. I love to watch movies. That you just don't know how dependent you are on vision until something happens that you might be losing it. And double vision is one of those things that you would think, well, if you see something delightful, a piece of chocolate cake, and seeing 2 pieces of chocolate cake is great. No, double vision is something that actually works against you. And so in the essence, in terms of organizations, and in our case, a congregation, having double vision is not good. And how many times I've worked with organizations, corporations, companies, churches, and nonprofits in which there's not one central vision that drives the organization or the church. There's competing visions. And I think it's very important that we have a sense in terms of what is God calling us to be, what is God calling us to do at FCC. and it's very important. Forbes magazine did a survey years ago, and they said that 65% of all corporations in America have a strategic plan. Now, having worked as a consultant for nearly 15 years, I would challenge that it's 65%. But that's what Forbes said. They said, however, when you ask employees what the plan is, only 10% of them can tell you what it is. And no wonder that only 10% are able to actually execute on their intended plan. And so I think that sometimes people see vision differently. Now I'm going to give you a vision test because I'm going to throw up here one of my favorite people, Charles Schulz, and I'm going to throw up a scene from a Peanuts cartoon. Can you read all of that? Don't worry, it's small font. Let me read it for you. On the top frame, you see Charlie and the brother and sister, Lucy and Linus Van Pelt. And they're standing on a hill, and Lucy says, "Aren't the clouds beautiful? They look like big balls of cotton." And then they're laying down on the hill, and she says, "I could just lie here all day and watch them drift by." If you use your imagination, you can see lots of things in the clouds formation. What do you think you see, Linus? Now, Linus Van Pelt is the philosopher of the Peanuts gang. This is what Linus says. "Well, those clouds up there look like the map of the British Honduras on the Caribbean. And the clouds up there look a little like the portrait of Thomas Eakins, the famous painter and sculptor. And that group of clouds over there gives me the impression of the stoning of Stephen. I can see the Apostle Paul standing by on the side." Lucy's very impressed, and she says, "That's very good. What do you see in the clouds, Charlie Brown?" And Charlie says, "Well, I was going to say I saw a ducky and a horsey, but I changed my mind." People can see the same pictures and see different things. And people can hear the same vision and somehow come away with different impressions. Years ago, when I was a senior pastor at a thriving congregation, the new thing that had come up in the late 80s and early 90s is that every church was encouraged to have a vision and a purpose and a mission. So one day, I had an afternoon free, and I thought I will take all the books that I've been reading on this, books by John Maxwell, books by Bill Hybels, books by George Barna, and magazine articles. This is pre-computer laptop days. And I was going to write out a comprehensive vision, mission, and purpose plan in an afternoon. I underestimated the task. But as I sat there, I spent 2.5 hours, and I would write something on a piece of paper, remember, pre-computer, and I would write something on a piece of paper, and then I'd get frustrated, I'd crumple it up, and I'd throw it in my waste paper basket. Another piece of paper, crumple it up, threw it in my waste paper basket. I was frustrated because different people were using the same words interchangeably. What one person would say the definition of vision would, somebody else would say that's the definition of mission, somebody else would say it's the definition of purpose. And after 2.5 hours, what had happened was I'd filled up to overflowing my waste paper basket. I was deeply frustrated, and I had thought I had one of two choices. I can either empty my waste paper basket and continue, grab my gym bag and head to the club and work out, and I ended up doing the latter. And didn't approach vision, mission, and purpose until over a decade later. But this time when I did two things. One of the things that I did was I said, I have got to develop my own working definitions for what purpose is, what vision is, and what mission is. And secondly, because I was working with peer groups of senior pastors at that time and coaching them, one of the things that I had to come up with was answering the question, when it comes to a church congregation, who determines what the purpose is, what the vision is, and what the mission is? Who gets to make that call? In the corporate world, if you are a privately owned company, it is either the owner or owners that get to determine that. In the public world, somebody may determine it, but it has to be passed by the board of directors. Owners get to decide what the vision, the mission, and the purpose of an organization are. But who gets to do that in a church? Is it the lead pastor? Is it the board of elders? Is it the congregation? And that's a big question. In other words, you can ask the question, who owns the church? Now, I know the answer is Jesus, right? When we ask a question in the church, the answer is always Jesus. So, but literally that's true. The Apostle Paul, when he was leaving Ephesus, said to the elders that God had purchased the church with his own blood. God owns the church. God owns FCC. But when it comes to an elders meeting or a congregational meeting or even a staff meeting, who speaks for Jesus? In the book of Acts, chapter 15, the council at Jerusalem, when they had to make a decision, the apostles were forced to make a decision about what were the qualifications of bringing Gentiles into the church. When they had finished their debate, their discussion, their prayer time, the beautiful comment that was made was, it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to do this. I can't tell you that I have ever heard that after a meeting, people utter, it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us. And yet, God's in charge of the church. How does that live out? Who gets to be the one to determine vision, mission, and purpose? So here's what I did. I spent enough time to come up with working definitions. Now, you may have a definition for purpose, a definition of vision, a definition of mission, and I want for the next 20 minutes just to have amnesia about those and just concentrate on these three. Purpose is, why does an organization or a congregation exist? How does our congregation make meaning? Vision is a compelling, inspiring, and challenging picture of the future. And mission is the path and actions that an organization takes in order to fulfill its purpose and to achieve its vision. Now, I went over those quickly because we'll take them apart one by one. But I think it's important to ask the question, can we find in the Scriptures where Jesus declares his purpose, his vision, and his mission? And so with that assignment, I sat down one afternoon to begin, not to complete, but to begin the search in the Gospels if I could find where Jesus declares that. Now, I went through the Gospel of Matthew. I was all the way to the 28th chapter when I came upon a passage that I was so excited because I thought I had found vision. But I didn't. It wasn't vision. It was mission. Now, this is a teaser because this is a two-part message, so hold on. We're going to talk about mission next week. I know that's riveting and you can't wait. Okay, but we're going to talk about mission next week. What is our mission at FCC as given to us by Jesus? So then I went into the book of Mark and I thought, okay, I've checked off mission. And I went through Mark. I couldn't find anything. I'm 3/4 of the way through Luke until I come upon something that gives me a sense of purpose. Now, let me go back and define purpose again. Why does an organization exist? Complete this sentence. FCC exists in order to what? Why do we exist? Purpose is the starting line of any organization or congregation. It's the beginning. And it's where we declare this is why we're going to be in existence. This is what we want to do. When Jody and I work with corporations, we ask the question, what is your purpose besides making money? Beyond making money. And we find that the owners that we work with that have a much bigger purpose than making money are the ones that are the most enjoyable to work with because there's something they're trying to solve. They're trying to make the world a better place. They're trying to solve an enormous problem, to meet an incredible need. They're trying to right a terrible wrong. And they use their company in order to do that. But when I work with churches, I ask this question: why do you exist beyond simply meeting on Sunday morning? Why does FCC exist beyond just meeting on Sunday morning? Because if we're not careful, we become a community or a club that exists just for everybody's needs here. And is that what Jesus has called us to be? And when the founders of this particular congregation brought FCC into existence, is that what they had in mind? Just to meet on Sunday mornings. It's one of the challenges in the church today, facing the church today, and the church's relevancy in our society, because many churches exist just to meet the needs of the people that come on Sunday morning. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't meet each other's needs. The Bible is very clear about meeting the needs of fellow believers. But what I'm saying is the purpose of the church is way, way beyond that. What did Jesus have to say about purpose? When I got almost 3/4 of the way through the Gospel of Luke, I came upon this passage. It's a passage where Jesus has called Zacchaeus down from a sycamore tree to go have lunch with him. And at the conclusion of the lunch, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house because this man too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." The Son of Man came. Jesus is giving us a hint as to why He came. Why He came is part of His purpose. Now, this particular passage says that He came to seek and to save the lost. A better translation is to say that He came to seek and to save that which is lost. Now, obviously, Jesus came to seek lost people. That's good news for us. Because at some point, every single one of us was lost. But Jesus came to seek and to save that which is lost. What does He mean by that? And without going into great detail, I believe that one of the things that Jesus was referring to was way back in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve chose to independently go their own way, that what happened was they lost a sense of their purpose at that time. Their purpose, God had said, was to multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over it. That they were given the keys to the world and to have dominion or power over it. When they chose to act independently and sin, the deed to planet Earth was given to Satan. That's why he is called the God of this age. That's why he is called the God of this world. He has keys to this. Jesus came to take back dominion of this world and give it back to you and I in terms of having stewardship and dominion over that. And he came back not only to do that, but to save us in the process. But then as I've thought about that, because that's an incredible purpose, as I've thought about that, I asked the question over the years, is there any other place where Jesus says this is why he came? And there are other passages. For instance, he says, "For I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me." The purpose of Jesus was to do the Father's will. You ever get up in the morning and say, today I want to do what God's will for me is today? I know some of you do. But I wonder how many of us do. Asking God, what do you have for us today? What do you have for me today to do? And he goes on and he says this, "And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up on the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day." That really coincides with what he said in Luke, doesn't it? I've come to seek and to save that which is lost. There he's talking about saving lost people. But then we go on in John chapter 10, he says, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to its full." Why did he come? That we may have life and have it abundantly. Now I know some people would love to take that word abundantly and turn it into great new cars, homes, possessions, material values. I think the word abundantly goes way beyond that. I believe it becomes a sense of deep-seated joy that circumstances cannot impact. You know, there's a big difference between joy and happiness, isn't there? I once heard somebody define happiness. He said this: if your happenings are dependent upon your happenings to happen the way you'd happen to want your happenings to happen, but your happenings don't happen to happen the way that you'd want your happenings to happen, you'll have no happiness. Don't challenge me, I can do it again. What is he saying? He's saying happiness is circumstantial. Joy is not dependent upon happiness. Abundant life is not dependent upon circumstances. It is a gift that Jesus gives. That's why joy, not happiness, is part of the fruit of the Spirit. Can you see the purpose of Jesus unfolding why he came? Gets even better. Jesus replied, as he's getting ready, this particular passage in John 12, he is getting ready to face the crucifixion. And he knows it. And in a discussion with his followers, he says this: "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified." Pay attention to the word glory or glorified. "Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it is for this very hour that I came. Father, glorify your name." Jesus' purpose has to do with the glory of God. And that meant that he would go to the cross to become payment for your sin and mine, that we would receive the righteousness that he imparts to us as a free gift. He focused on God's glory. And so we come to a passage in John 17. I know this is information dump. Just hang in with me. We come to a passage in John 17, which is, I believe, the real Lord's Prayer. The prayer that we usually associate with the Lord's Prayer is, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That's really the disciples' prayer. It's the prayer that Jesus gave his followers. This prayer, though, in John 17, was the Lord's Prayer, as he's praying just before he is arrested. And he's talking to his Father, and he's talking about sharing the glory that they had before the world was begun. And he said, Father, my prayer is that they would know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. He said, that is eternal life. And then he says this, I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. Wow. I brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. Is that exciting? You know what the purpose of FCC is? To bring God glory by finishing the work he's given you and I to do. That is the purpose. And part of that is to meet Sunday mornings. Part of that is to meet each other's needs. But it cannot stay here, because Jesus didn't call an exclusive country club membership. He called an army. He called disciples that were willing to lay down their lives to extend the gospel everywhere, to lost people in every circumstance, whether it be in Fremont, Newark City, in Union City, in Newark, or all around the globe. That is the purpose that he's given us to do. Next week, we'll tie this in even closer. But what about vision? We're going to go through this quickly because we're almost done. Is this making sense at all? Good. Because let me tell you why this is, I'll tell you at the end why this is important. Vision, let me just repeat this. Vision is a compelling, inspiring, and challenging picture of the future. Visions are still pictures that are able to be framed and mounted. When you see a vision, you capture a vision with a digital camera that you could blow up, frame, and put over your office desk, put on your refrigerator, put in a card that you could carry around with you in your purse or your pocket. It would be a picture that you would say, one day that's what I wanted to do. If your vision was to climb Mount Everest, what would you do? You would have a picture of Mount Everest framed everywhere, because that's what you want to keep in your eyesight, because that's where you're headed. It's inspiring. It's compelling. It's challenging. Visions tend to outlive visionaries. And I thought, I can't wait to see what Jesus' vision was. This is going to be good, because the greatest example of a vision in the 20th century was by Martin Luther King Jr. We all know it. What was the name of the speech? I have a dream. And he doesn't give us one picture. He gives us a whole photo album of pictures. And so when we think about it, visions are captured by word pictures. And Dr. King says, I have a dream. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, The sons and daughters of former slaves and the sons and daughters of former slave owners will be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood. You know, I tried to Google images, tried to find the table of brotherhood in the Red Hills of Georgia, and I could not find one. Come on, Google. You got to be better than that. Somebody here must work at Google. Tell them to work on that, please. So what I did, and this picture doesn't do it justice because by the time I could get it big enough, but what it is on the right-hand side, Nelson Mandela being served communion by a white priest, and I couldn't think of a better example of a table of brotherhood than the communion table. It is a word picture, and that works for me. Sons and daughters of former slaves sitting down with sons and daughters of former slave owners. He goes on to say that one day, even in the state of Mississippi, a state weltering with the heat of oppression will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. An oasis, that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side was the march with James Meredith that happened in Mississippi when he was shot by a sniper. Contrasting. Or Dr. King said that my 4 children, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but rather by the content of their character. And I thought Dr. King would have been in his early 80s when President Barack Obama was sworn in as the President of the United States. And I wondered how he would have felt if he had watched that happen. I don't think he would have said the vision was completely achieved, but he would have said we're closer. Or the last one when he said that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping with interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. Can you not hear him say, I have a dream today? I have a dream. And Jesus had a dream for his church. And I thought, this is going to be great. I'd gone through Matthew, Mark, Luke. I found mission. That's next week. I found purpose. John will be the one. If there is a Linus Van Pelt of all the apostles, it's John. John will be the one. And so I couldn't wait. I read through the Gospel of John, and I got to the end, and guess what? I didn't see it. And all of those frustrations of my time throwing pieces of paper in my wastebasket, I went, oh, here I am again. I can't see it. Jesus is the greatest visionary who has ever lived, and I can't see his vision. I couldn't have missed it. I went back again. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Gee, I couldn't find it. And I gave up. But this time I put a pause on it and said, someday it's going to happen. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from a lady in our congregation, or a man, whose wife had just passed away, and he asked me if I would do the memorial. And I said, yes, I would. And as I prepared, I thought, what passage am I going to use? I'm going to use Revelation 21. And so I turned to Revelation 21, and this is what I wrote, what I saw. Then I saw, isn't that the terminology of vision? Then I saw a heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Is that not a vision? A place where there is no more death, a place where there is no mourning or crying or pain, a place where there's no homelessness, no hunger, no double vision, no eye problems, no cataracts, no fat. That is paradise, and that is the end game. That is where we're headed. And that is worthy of a God for us to follow. That is the promise that he makes. That is the vision that we ascribe to. Because you see, if vision belongs to Jesus, and by the way, I should have known the answer is always in the back of the book. If the vision actually is the vision of Jesus, and the purpose is actually the purpose of Jesus, and the mission, next week, the mission is the mission of Jesus, then guess what? When we align ourselves with that, hold on to your hat because you have no idea what is going to happen. You see, vision, mission, purpose doesn't belong to the lead pastor. It doesn't belong to the board of elders. It doesn't belong to our congregation. It belongs to Jesus. So when we go through a pastoral change, like what has just happened, we don't have to all of a sudden press pause and go, well, I guess we just have to wait until we get a new pastor. No, because we have our marching orders. And our marching orders don't come from a man or a woman. Our marching orders come from the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. Our marching orders come from Jesus. And it's time for us to get excited. It's time for FCC to wonder, what is the future going to look like? What is it that God has for us next? Not dreams about the good old days. Because the good old days are coming up. There is a story that's told of a lady who knew that she was passing away. And she said, I only have one thing I want you to do. When I die, and there's going to be an open casket memorial, what I want you to do is I want you to take a fork and put it in my hand across my chest. And they said, why? And she said, I'll tell you later. You'll know. And so people were coming up to this open casket, and they're looking in, and here's a lady, and then she's got a fork in her hand. They're going, what's a fork? And she said she'd let us know later. And so it came towards the end, and the pastor that was officiating at the memorial said, oh, Mabel had one last instruction. You're probably wondering what the fork is. Mabel wanted you to know that we've done a lot of potlucks here at the church. And when you get a plastic spoon, you know that the dessert's probably going to be something like Jell-O. But if you get a fork, you know dessert is going to be substantial. And Mabel just wanted you to know that the best is yet to come. When we talk about vision and we align with Jesus, the best is yet to come. Let's pray. Jesus, you are a God that is worthy to be followed. You are a God that is worthy to serve. You alone are the one who tells us why we exist, where we're ultimately headed, and you are the one that gives us our instructions to follow and a mission to execute. So God, we want to do what it is that you want us to do, and we want to serve you in a way that brings glory to you. So as the worship team leads in one last service, I'm going to call the elders to come forward. If you have any need today that you want to be prayed for, we want to invite you to come forward. Or if you want to say, you know what? Jesus talked about coming to save the lost. And I am a lost person. And I need someone to help me find my way home. We would be glad to tell you how to do that. Amen.